Greetings and welcome to all of you new members of the U.S. military. To help you on your way, we have assembled an all-star group of expert teachers, veterans who have been there and can instruct you on how to get the job done and return home safely. Listen carefully. The U.S. military will provide you basic necessities such as food and clothing.
We had no kitchen or cooks with us, so we ate K rations. You familiar with K rations? They come in what looks like a Cracker Jack box, but sealed up pretty tightly to keep them from getting soggy and all. And in that they had a high energy candy bar and a few things like that, and something that you could make coffee or tea out of. And wasn't exactly the most appetizing thing, but it was nourishing, and it kept you going, because you couldn't carry a lot of stuff with you on an advanced party.
And they issue you a sea bag with all your clothing, and every day while you're in boot camp, they tell you the uniform of the day, and they make sure that uniform is in the bottom of the sea bag every day in the rotation, like you see in the movies,
If you don't know how to read a map, now's the time to learn.
At one point, we could see the captain didn't know where we were, and that's not healthy.
When you're lost, you pull out your map. Figure out where you are and figure out where you have to go and how the best to get there.
To figure out where you are on a map, you should look for a landmark, like a crossroads or an intersection. And then you may need to check the map's scale.
1 inch, usually 1 inch equals so many miles or kilometers. 1 inch might be 100 miles, it might be 50 miles.
It also may be useful to know your coordinates.
A coordinate is basically a east or west, north or south. The Earth is a big ball. And if you have a given point, in this case Greenwich, England, you start out at 0 and go west or east, and it says I go west 6 degrees, 8 degrees, what happens to be west, that brings you in the United States at some point. The Earth, of course, is again the circumference at the equator. That's 0. You go north or south from the equator. You can define any point on the Earth in terms of longitude and latitude. 360 degrees takes you all around the Earth. And when you're dealing with 500 yards, you have to break it down a lot.
After the degree, there are 2 smaller numbers called the minute and the second. When you are given a set of degrees, you'll be given 2 large numbers. Each of those numbers will have 3 smaller numbers within them. The first of those numbers is the degree, the second is the minute, and the third is the second. To find where you are on a map based on a set of coordinates, first look at the north or south coordinate. Then find that degree, minute, and second on your map and draw a line. Then do the same thing with your east or west coordinate. The point where those 2 lines intersect is your location. Many maps also show the terrain and physical characteristics like rivers, mountains, and roads. How those appear on a map may differ from map to map, so keep an eye out for the key or legend, and try not to get lost.
One of the most important things you can learn is how to communicate with your colleagues.
Morse code is dots and dashes.
You learn the alphabet. A is dit da, that's A. And then B is da, dit. So you practice exactly that way. Da, dit, that's C. Da, dit is the end of the message.
It takes a lot of practice to be able to decipher a message in Morse code. It can be difficult to hear when one letter ends and another begins. If you don't have time to practice, it may be helpful for several people to try to write down the message using a dot for a short tone and a dash for a long tone. And hopefully, the sender will repeat the message at various times so you could check your work.
Da 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 da.
Figuring out the enemy's communications also may be vital to your survival.
Encoding and decoding, and we had to do various settings on the machine to have them be applicable for that day. Have you heard of the Enigma?
The Enigma code was a very complex code created by the Germans in World War II. The Enigma encoder and decoder machine is an electromechanical device. It uses many different gears on it to change a letter in the original message to another letter in the coded message. To read the coded or encrypted message, another person would feed the coded message in another Enigma machine using the appropriate code. That person would have to enter the coded message in letter by letter because every letter entered into an Enigma machine changes how the next letter is encrypted or unencrypted. So skipping even one letter would mess up the rest of the message. In our example today, we are using only 4 gears. To begin using the Enigma decryption machine, you have to set the gears to the code of the day. This starts the gears in the right place. In other words, the same place as the original Enigma machine that drafted the message started the gears. To set the gears on this emulator, you must tap the up and down arrows on your keyboard. For our example today, we will use the code 0, Z-E-R-O. To set these gears, first hit the down arrow. This will change the first letter on the machine to a Z. Next, press the right arrow on your keyboard. This will change the gear that you are changing the letter for. To change the next letter to E, hit the up arrow 4 times. Now hit the right arrow again and set this gear to the letter R. Finally, hit the right arrow one more time to set the final letter to O. Once you have all 4 gears starting with the right letter, you can now encode or decode a message. We will demonstrate decoding an Enigma message that reads the following: I, P, V, G, A. To decode this message, you first type in your keyboard the first letter of the message, I. Then, a letter will light up above, showing what the first letter of the actual message is. In this example, the first letter of our message is H. Then, we type the next letter in our encrypted message, which is P. You see that the second letter in the message is E. As you may notice above, the gears are constantly changing when you click another letter to decipher. The next letter in our message is V, which is deciphered to an L. Then our next letter is G, which is also an L. And our final letter is A, which is deciphered as an O. So our message is saying hello. It's really important not to skip a letter. If you do skip a letter, you'll have to reset the gears on the top of the screen by using the up and down and right and left arrows. Then you have to begin your message all the way from the beginning. Because it's difficult to imagine that someone could break this code without having another Enigma machine and knowing the initial gear settings, the Germans believed this code was unbreakable. They were wrong. The Allies successfully broke this code in 1940. However, it is much easier to break the code if you know the initial gear settings. Good luck using this machine while you're serving overseas.
Sometimes you may have to figure out what people are saying in other languages.
In the European theater, it is very important to be able to translate messages from German to English.
You really have to know the language. There's no way of avoiding it. If you don't know the language, you're in deep, deep kimchi. And you also have to understand a little bit about the grammar and the word structure, or you can really foul it all up. And the real key is to always get the sense of what it is that sentence is to portray. What is it that you want to put across? And it's more important to get that sense across than to be exact on the wording. But when you do translate, you should try to use the same words that are similar from the English to the German, if that's the case, and try to put it in a different structure. Like the German has the verb at the end, you put the verb at the end. You don't translate exactly the way the English is structured, because that doesn't come across very well. The sentences go on and on and on.
And all that's true. But even someone who is not fluent may be able to figure out some words and phrases with the help of a good dictionary.
Knowing how to use radar may save your life.
So here is how to find an enemy or friendly on an air search. So you have a line that has pips, upper triangle it would be. This pip goes up, that's an airplane. And when you see a plane coming in on your radar, you want to challenge the pip to see if it's a friendly or foe plane. It has IFF on it, identification friend or foe. And there were 6 codes. Every day was a different code. So that when you challenge that pip, the plane had IFF on it.
If the plane had the correct IFF on it for that day's code, then you know it's a friendly plane. But if it has an incorrect reading, that means it's either a faux plane or there's a problem with the plane.
It went up and down 3 times that day, then you knew it was friendly. If it went once, something was wrong.
If you're in the Navy, you may need to understand semaphore flags.
The ships communicate between themselves with flags.
The flags these ships used to communicate were called semaphore flags.
I was able to read the code, so I knew from the flags they were using what they were doing, and I could look up and say, hey, that's this letter, and so I would tell the rest of the people exactly, so that's that letter. So I could keep our crew, my personal friends, updated on what was going on.
To use semaphore flags, senders would move their arms into a particular position, which symbolized a letter or number. They also used maritime signal flags. There was one flag for each letter and number. Keep in mind that different countries have different maritime signal flags. So, for example, the Americans had different signal flags than the Japanese.
You have now completed basic training. It's time for you to get out there, and good luck.